Most of the potential dividends can be expected in the northeast, northwest, and north central zones because they have got younger populations, much more highly dependent structure of their populations, but they will need to invest in those populations. In other words, while every part of our country can reap the dividend of additional productivity from investing in human capital, the benefits, in fact, accrue more to states which have not started the demographic transition. So where are we as a country? And I'm saying this just to give a context to what is this administration doing. In terms of health investment, it's very clear that we are not among the highest investors in the health of our population, and we have not been for a very long time. Not only have we not collected the revenues to invest overall, but within the revenue that we collect, if you look at that, it gives us a health system for less than $100 per person, compared to other countries that have $400, $500 per person, or some like the UK, almost $4,000 per person, or the United States, $11,000 per person. In other words, investing in health and education requires the resources. You can't just talk about it. If you don't invest in it, you get a health system for what you invest. You cannot invest to buy a bicycle and expect to drive a Mercedes-Benz. So we've not collected enough revenue, and of what we've collected, we've not invested enough on this area that is key to our population's health. And I can say this also applies to education. So what is the way forward if we're to reap the potential of this largely youthful population that is fast growing to achieve the productivity gains that will lead us to a prosperous, more unified and peaceful country in the years ahead? So for the administration, what we did was to set our North Star to save lives, to reduce physical pain given the burden of diseases that we have, lots of them, maternal and child health, vaccine-preventable diseases, non-communicable diseases, huge inequities in the distribution of those health outcomes across geopolitical zones, across wealthiest and poorest Nigerians. If you look at the distribution of utilization and outcomes across our country and compared to other neighboring countries in Africa, you'll find the wealthier Nigerians have among the highest access and utilization of services, the highest 20% in wealth quintiles, while the poorest Nigerians are among the worst compared to our comparator countries. It's almost like a broomstick. So a huge inequality that exists within the structure of our population, within the structure of our governance systems. And hence, what we do, whether it's producing health, we would like to do it for all Nigerians, taking, in fact, those who are poor and vulnerable behind. It's not enough to focus on those who are already getting services, who are already able to finance care for themselves. Domestic allows them to solve those immediate priorities. It's a lot easier to spend 10, 20 billion on major infrastructure because so many actors will be happy with that. But for what communities need, oftentimes is very basic. That's the approach. But to also coordinate across sectors because there are many interfaces of this government with people. So in health, adolescent girl, the pregnant woman, the early child, the young adults, the reproductive health, age, parents, the elderly, they interface with the health system. But education also matters from early childhood and the quality of it. The women affairs matters in intersecting gender across all that we do. And there are many facets. This week we had the Arts in Health conference that also interfacts with the welfare of the population. And so that's the approach that allows government to interface with the individual across a life course. And if we do that and we sustain it, we'll realize the benefit in terms of improved human and social capital in our communities, rebuilding trust between the government, the state, and its people. And we know, it's now becoming a cliche, that our greatest asset is the people, and that the health, education, and social well-being should ideally be at the center of all governance and policy actions. Growth is important. Mining is important. Oil and gas is important. Large infrastructure is very important to facilitate the growth. But the growth has to be translated into the welfare of the people. And if we do that and invest in human capital, then the virtuous cycle will ensure that we grow. And leadership and elite consensus is going to be very key to prioritizing the investments that are needed in basic health and education, and particularly for girls, women, and children. I think that's what the President is trying to really help us build, that consensus, to see this as investments. The fact that your child is safe, is well educated, doesn't solve the problem. If someone else's child is left out of school or is malnourished so that their cognitive capacity is less, that means you'll have someone who is your employee that is not reaching their full potential. So we have an interest, the political, social, and economic elite of Nigeria, to ensure that we invest in those basic elements that will harness the human capital of this country so that we grow faster. And subnational leaders are as well very important, particularly the governors, and especially in the northern part of the country. Because I mentioned the demographic dividend, because of the structure of their population, investing in basic education and basic health services and sanitation, the dividend will accrue to them significantly. In parts of the country where there is aging, yes, there will be demographic dividend, but given the youthful population they have, in fact, the state governors will need to double up in terms of ensuring quality basic health and quality basic education for their population. And for us at the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, we know we align completely on the direction of our President and for his vision for a prosperous Nigeria. And hence, that's why we are tackling head-on the high maternal, infant, and child mortality, trying to control the vaccine-preventable diseases, trying to reduce as much as we can the burden of malaria and tuberculosis, to begin to deal with hypertension, diabetes, strokes, and cancers through prevention and treatment, and to begin to take care of our elderly populations. But beyond that, we also know that all of us must ensure that we educate and empower the girl child and our women generally, economically, socially, and politically. Not to say that we leave the boy child, because the boy child also needs to grow to be a responsible adult, and the youth to help them to transition to adulthood and to the labor market through provision of quality jobs. Because when you see huge unemployed youth, it represents a failure in transition from school. It represents a failure of the production system of education that doesn't give them the skills and the market that fails them to provide the job. So there's an underlying disease to the youth employment. It's a failure of a system to transit them from education to labor market. And by quality jobs that this youth need, it means well-paying jobs with career progression and harnessing the innovation and the entrepreneurial spirit of Nigerians. We're very entrepreneurial people. But when we truncate it and we provide ad hoc, it's not ad hoc that youth need. It's quality jobs that are qualitative, enduring, with clear progression. So that transition from health to education to youthfulness and to the labor market, that is a transition that we collectively have to work to fine-tune. And doing all of this requires improved governance, hence our first pillar, and I believe other sectors as well, to heal and to unify us as a people, for us to collaborate across governments and sectors, because it's not only one sector. It's not the private sector alone in opposition to the public sector, or one health sector from a different sector. And to have stronger, better quality institutions to enhance our citizen focus. Because at the end of the day, if we say the people are at the center, then we must begin to respect and respond to what the people actually need. To reduce waste, because there's lots of wastage in the limited resources that we have, including corruption at different levels, not only public, but also private sector. Because corruption doesn't occur in isolation. In fact, I wouldn't go more into it, but I know that it requires everyone. It's a whole of society approach that is needed, in addition to the improved and stable macroeconomic management overall that will provide the environment for peace and for the investments to come. And I firmly believe that we can make it happen, and that's why I want to encourage you to be optimistic in terms of the direction that this president is taking us as a country. So thank you, Jide, once again for asking me to come and say a few words. I wish you all the best in this important conference. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, if you could please oblige us, we would like to present a plaque of appreciation. If you would please come back on stage. Mr. Akitunde, the convener of NDFF, please join us.